Hi, that was my version of Mr Conductor Man by Big Bill Broonzy. Now this song is a nice, fast, upbeat piece of blues music. And although it seems quite straightforward on the surface, it's typical of Broonzy's playing style insofar as it's fast and it's actually quite tricky to play. So what I want to do is take you through this. So I've played through my version of it. Next thing I want to do is have a look at the song structure. I'll give you some tips on playing it, and then I'll play it slower and stick the tab on screen. Okay, so first what I want to do is have a look at the structure of the song, and this is nice and straightforward. So it's played on guitar in standard tuning, it's in 4/4 time, and it's played in the key of A. And it uses the three chords you'd expect to find in the key of A in blues music, which is A, D, and E. Now, it's basically a 12 bar, this song, but because Broonzy puts in so many variations throughout it, it sometimes diverges from the standard 12 bar in terms of the chords that are used. But for sake of argument, we're just going to say it's a 12 bar blues, this piece of music. Now what I've given you in my version is I've given you the intro, which runs from bars 1 to 11, the verse, which runs from bars 12 to 23, and the outro, which is the last 4 bars of the music. Okay, so the verse section that I've put in is the first verse that Broonzy plays through in his recorded version. And in my version, it runs from bars 12 to 23. Now, what Broonzy does in his version is he keeps repeating the verse throughout. And each time he repeats it, he uses different variations within it. But for the version I've done, to make it nice and straightforward, I've just put in one playthrough of the first verse that he plays. If you want, you can listen to his recorded version and maybe pull out some of the licks in that he plays in different verses. But I think if you're wanting to play through it easily, and perhaps if you want to sing over it, that the first verse that he plays through is probably the easiest. Okay, so that's really the structure of the song. Like I said, it's quite straightforward. It's basically just a standard 12 bar blues. So now what I want to do is give you some tips on playing it, as it can be quite a tricky piece of music. Okay, so here's some tips on playing it. So what are some of the things that are likely to trip you up? Well, given that it's a relatively short piece of music, my version, there's actually quite a lot that could trip you up in this, and it is quite tricky to play. So the first thing that you're going to notice is the tempo's quick in this piece of music. And because the tempo's quick, you have to have quite nimble fingers to play the notes. Now the 8th notes are probably straightforward enough, but he does use a lot of triplets in it, and to play the triplets you have to play fast. So if we take a passage in bar 10, it goes like this. Now that's pretty fast. So what I recommend you do when you see triplets in the music is to use your index and middle finger to play those notes, because you won't get the speed if you use any other fingers. Now, if you're used to playing fingerstyle guitar where you use these 3 fingers, your index, middle and ring, to play the top 3 strings, I doubt you'll be able to play it quick enough using the middle and ring finger. So what you're going to have to do is drop your hand down and use the index and middle. When you see the fast passages of music, forget about your ring finger, just use your index and middle to play the treble notes on them. Now the next thing it's likely to catch out are the slides. He doesn't use them much in the music, but where he does use them, they are tricky to play. So he uses them at the very start in the intro, and he also uses them for a bar in the outro section. And both these slides are quite tricky to play, but for different reasons. So in the intro, what he does is a small slide up like this. Like that. And what makes this tricky is you have to do it really quick. It's really just a ghost note that you're sliding up into what you're playing. So you have to really, use a fair amount of force and push that slide quickly up, and it can be really easy to get it wrong. So if you are having trouble with this, just leave the slide out. Okay, so that's the problem you're likely to get with that slide. In the outro, what you have is another slide that goes like this. And this is also a tricky slide to play because it's getting the timing of the slide right. However, it is right at the end of the music. Now, the music slows down in the last couple of bars and it has almost a free time feel to it. So that means that if you are playing it through and the timing of these slides isn't 100%, it doesn't really matter. It's an outro and it's got a very free time feel to it. So there's not so much emphasis on nailing these slides correctly. Now, the last thing that might trip you up is his use of eighth bass notes. Now, as is standard with fingerstyle guitar, most of the bass notes are played on the beat of the bar, and in 4/4 time there's 4 in each bar, so it's just like that. But in a lot of the bars, what he likes to do is stick an eighth note at the end. So what you end up with is something like, and it just gives it a nice little jump into the next bar. Now, it can be quite easy to mistime these bass notes and often just forget about them altogether. If you are struggling with them, just leave them out, Okay, that's all the playing tips I want to give you. Now what I want to do is play it a bit slower and stick the tab on screen.